Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. I have already filmed half of this video realizing that I didn't even press record, so that's how this video is starting out. If you've never seen my face before, hi, hello, my name is Joanne. On this channel, I do a lot of book, lifestyle, and beauty related content. So if that sounds like something that you're interested in, then I encourage you to subscribe and stick around because I come at you every week with a new video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Matthew McConaughey's new book, Green Lights. In these types of videos, I sit down and talk about the book, what I thought of it, some of my favorite passages from it, and overall if I would recommend the book, and I do my makeup at the same time. So without further ado, let's just get right into the video again. All of the products that I use will be listed down below, as well as a link to this book where you can find it, buy it. You can buy it in audio, you can buy it in ebook, you can buy it in hardback, paperback. It's going to be on Amazon, okay? Amazon. The first thing that I want to mention is that I did download the audiobook of this particular book, which was narrated by Matthew McConaughey himself. So the physical book that I have here is actually a gift that I'm going to be gifting somebody this year. So if that tells you anything, yes, I did enjoy the book, so much so that I think somebody in my life is really going to enjoy it. So let's just start off with some of the passages that got my attention. I finished this book in about a week listening to it. After the first 2 minutes of reading this book, I already knew I was really going to enjoy it. Matthew McConaughey, the way he writes especially, is incredibly relatable. He really didn't sugarcoat anything or hold anything back. He really just went full steam ahead with all of the stories of his life, even the incredibly embarrassing ones that you would think no one would ever really want to share. No, nothing was off limits in this book. He talks about everything. Even some stuff that was a little bit uncomfortable, but no, he mentions it, all of it. So kudos for him for doing that. He first starts off by talking about ever since he was a really young kid, he always really enjoyed journaling and just writing things down, not so that he could keep them and remember things, but so that he could actually just write things down and forget about them, leave them in the past where they belong, and just move on with his life. And I completely related to that sentiment. I have always been a journaler. I like to write it down, get it out of my brain so I can move on and think of bigger, better things. His story and his life in general is all about persistence, but also learning how to just let things go. He talks about during his upbringing and everything, it was always talked about how if you want something, you have to work hard and you have to go out and get it and strive for it and keep striving for it until you get it. But if things don't go your way, it's also important to learn how to just let things go and just move on to the next thing that life has for you. He talks about how you can't let these things in life weigh you down, because then you could miss another opportunity that comes if you're just stuck in the past thinking about the opportunity or the thing that you want in life that's just not coming your way. And that brings us to the title of his book, Green Lights. So green lights mean carry on your way. In our lives, it's an affirmation of our journey saying, yes, you're going the right way, keep on going, carry on. A green light means yes, and we like green lights. One of the keys in life, he says, is to catch more green lights, is to know where your red lights in life are. The things that are going to stop you. The things that are going to tell you, no, you can't. I wrote that down as being something that really caught my attention. And I would honestly have to really think deep down what my red lights are. So if you've read this book, or if you can think about where your red lights are, then let me know down below in the comments because I'm kind of stumped. The good news that he talks about in his book is that just like a red light, all yellow and red lights turn green in life. So you have to wait for your green light and then you just carry on. In this story, he recounts a lot of really funny stories from his childhood that include his dad, a lot of his dad, his mom, his brothers, everybody. They were extremely entertaining and literally had me rolling on the floor of my car as I drove. One of the funny stories that he tells in this book that really stuck out to me that I can remember vividly is that one summer, him and his dad had just moved into a trailer together, and his mom was on an extended vacation, and he really, really wanted a tree house. So in the middle of the night, he would sneak out of his house while his dad was asleep and sneak into a lumber yard by cutting a hole in the fence, and just slowly, he would steal wood, he would steal supplies, and was building a treehouse in the middle of the night, only to return back to his house in the daytime, like right before his father would wake up. They would have breakfast together, and then his father would go to work, and then he would just like continue on building this treehouse. The tree house turned out to be like 13 stories high, which I really can't even picture in my mind. They were in Texas. So I also live in Texas, and I cannot think of a tree that tall. And I really can't think of just a kid. I think he said he was like maybe 10 or 12 or something in the story. A kid that young building a treehouse on his own. But that just circles back to the determination and like striving for what you really want in life. And I was just laughing my ass off. Because after the summer was over, him and his dad ended up moving, and he never saw that treehouse again. So he spent the entire summer building this huge, awesome treehouse, only to literally leave it in a month and then just never go back. Never even, I don't even think to this day he's gone back to it. One of his little takeaways from this book is kind of common sense, but I still wrote it down. But he says that finding who you are in life is hard. And the way that you truly find out who you are in life is by eliminating who you're not. He says once you eliminate who you're not, then you're left with what's left, and that's who you are. And yeah, that makes a lot of sense. He's not lying. So unfortunately, I think us as the reader are looking to these types of, I don't want to call him a guru. He's not a guru, but he is a very like mature, intelligent man, and we're looking for him to tell us basically what's the secret to life. How do you know who you are? Like, how can I just go out and find who I am? And unfortunately, in his book, he's saying you have to live your life. You have to find out who you're not. And when you've gone through all those options, then what's left is who's left, and that's who you are. So thank you, Matthew McConaughey. Another Matthewism that I wrote down in my notes is while you're going through it, while you're going through something bad, something unpleasant, something that you wouldn't, that you never really thought was going to be happening, always tell yourself that there's something that you can learn from this. There is a silver lining. And again, this is another one of those situations where you're like, well, yes, thank you, Matthew. It's just common sense, but I just felt the need to write these things down. Leave it up to Matthew to just give us some common sense to get us through some of the muddy times in life. I was going for a yellow and red as in stoplights, but it turned into like gold and pink, and you know what? It's okay. Another one of his takeaways from the book is that you can be the film student and you can also be the frat guy at the same time. And no, I'm not a film student or a frat guy, but I could relate to this little piece of insight, because ultimately that's kind of what gave him his edge. It helped him stand out from the crowd. And I need a second to do the eyeliner. Pause. I have to go fix this eyeliner. It looks like trash. I'm not lying when I say literally 30 minutes later. Okay, I have salvaged the look. That's what I get for trying to use two eyeliners that I would never ever use normally. They were just what was handy. So I grabbed them and it took me forever. So anyway, moving on with what I was saying. He talks about how you can be the frat guy and the film student in the same person. And that really resonated with me because as someone who works in the medical field especially, I sometimes get dampened down thinking that like I can't also live a creative lifestyle as well. But he talks in his book about how being the frat guy and the film student together are what sets him apart and makes him his own person and makes him valuable and makes it where he has something to offer and maybe gives a new perspective on something. And I really needed to hear that when I read that. One of the quotes from his book is that Cool doesn't try, it just is. And I like that. I wrote that down and put it in parentheses and put his name after it as a direct quote. And the takeaway that I got from this section in the book in particular is that we all want to be cool and live these perfect lives, but ultimately the only way to do that is just to be your authentic self. Again, cool doesn't try, it just is. The only way you can do that is just to be yourself. And I like that. Why am I putting my bottom lash line on when I haven't done my face makeup yet? This video is all over the place, I'm telling you. I'm going to have fun editing it. But we might as well do the other side while we're at it. Moving on, another one of his little Matthew-isms that I wrote down that stood out to me is that you only need one in a row. In order to succeed, you just need to have one success in a row and just continually have one success. Oh my gosh. I laughed out loud. He's not wrong. I guess the idea behind that is just to break it down into something that seems manageable, maybe not so intimidating. In his book, he says, in order to succeed, you just have to do one thing right and do that over and over again. Again, he's not wrong. At a time in his career, after his role in Dazed and Confused, he really kind of set off to Hollywood to really make it big and start his career. But unfortunately, when he got there, he wasn't getting any calls. He wasn't really wanted for any parts in any movies. One of his agents told him, act like you want them, not like you need them. So that sparked his interest to basically pack up, leave, go traveling, and he tells some wild, crazy, hilarious stories about his travels. I really suggest you pick up this book because it's hilarious. And some of the stuff that happens to him, you just are thinking to yourself, like, there's no way that this actually happened to him in real life or anybody. Like, how does this just happen to somebody? It all kind of worked out for young Matthew. He strikes off and has the adventure of his life and then comes back into Hollywood and he's, you know, people are wanting to hire him for films again. Does my skin look yellow? While I was reading this book, it just brought to light how incredibly introspective that Matthew McConaughey is. I mean, to take the time to really learn yourself and try to basically like find how to become happy. I mean, he did that in his life. And I mean, kudos to him. My skin looks yellow. Am I yellow? Probably. I'm sure it's fine. One of the things that I wrote down that really struck me as powerful is before you say yes to something, before you agree to do something, ask yourself, like really just ask yourself mentally if you actually want to do that. Again, another piece of information that it's like, did it really need to be written down in a book? But the answer is yes. I mean, he did such a good job with this book. Like I said, I listened to the audiobook, but when I physically bought the book, there are a lot of times in the book where there are actual like photos of what he's talking about. And then there's also just like real typed out just journal entries, handwritten things in here. Things that you're not going to get the full effect on if you listen to the audiobook. Now, I really enjoyed the audiobook. I'm not saying one is inherently better than the other. Matthew does an incredible job telling you that there's a picture there or telling you that there's a piece of scrap paper there. But ultimately, I think that to get the full effect of the book and what you're reading, to actually have the book in front of you would probably make the experience a little better. I have got to finish this makeup look. I've been going on and on about this for too long, and I'm pretty sure I'm not making any sense anymore. Something that I didn't know about Matthew McConaughey before reading this book is that He actually is a little hippie soul. He buys this Airstream, attaches it to his Jeep, and just basically travels just wherever him and his little dog want to go, or they're following like a movie set. Any type of meeting that he has, if someone flies in to visit him, then he says that his boardroom is actually in his vehicle, and he'll just pick them up from the airport, drive them around. They'll discuss whatever they have to discuss. He said that he can actually think more clear while he's driving, and I get that. In the book, he talks about how he met his wife when they had their 3 kids, and it was a very, very sweet story. He talks about his career in the rom-com industry and how that just ultimately, like toward the end, was not for him in his life, and he didn't really feel like that's the kind of movies he wanted to do anymore, and how he basically had to just stand up for himself, what he believed he wanted in his life, and he held out for a lot of roles actually, and a lot of opportunities that came his way in order to stay true to himself and really just wait out the opportunities that he knew were more right for him. His wife now was incredibly supportive of this situation, and I think that was incredibly brave of her. She stood by her man, and Matthew McConaughey is lucky to have her. She graciously gave him 3 beautiful kids. Him and his wife now agree that wherever he goes, the family also goes with him. His family is very important to him, and I love that about Matthew McConaughey. I didn't put my highlighter on. Very important. Overall, I thought Matthew McConaughey was an incredibly relatable guy. I was really jealous of some of the stories he had to tell and some of the life experiences that he was able to have. He's lived some life. He has some tales to tell. And boy, does he tell them in this book. So ultimately, Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey is a green light for me. I really enjoyed this book. I'm glad I have it on Audible. I could really listen to it whenever I wanted to. This book is being gifted to somebody I love this Christmas, so hopefully they enjoy that, and I'm not giving away who's getting it, so you can fight in the comments if you want. If you're on the fence about picking up this book, I suggest you do. You won't be disappointed. I enjoyed it. I think you will too. So that's all for me tonight. I hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a big thumbs up if you did, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!